Cinemark Century San Francisco, the movie theater at the downtown Westfield Mall, will have its final showings tomorrow during the matinee.
Ahead of a big weekend at the box office, one of the last movie theaters in Ashtabula County has shut down.
Regal Cinemas may close all of its theaters here in the U.S., including 8 here in San Diego County, as soon as this week.
Paragould Cinema 8 is set to close on this Thursday.
The Regal Jewel. Fox 44's Renato G stopped by the establishment one last time on its closing day.
A movie theater chain in the East has announced they will be closing its doors soon.
It is the end of an era here in Claremont. The city's only movie theater is shutting down.
Moviegoers making their final trip to the Regal Moline Theater. After today, it's going dark.
But now, New Haven's only movie theater set to close next month.
And the lights will dim at an Eastern Carolina theater for the final time tonight, leaving the community without a place to watch a movie on the big screen.
The next closest location is more than 70 miles away, and in fact, if you want to go to any theater, you'd have to either leave the county or cross state lines.
Sad news for movies out in Johnston. The AMC Theater has permanently closed.
For many here in Chesapeake, they remember seeing their favorite movie posters lining the Regal Cinemas here at Greenbrier. But now, like the rest of the theater, these displays sit empty.
A former movie theater in the St. Andrews area in Columbia will soon be a church.
It's set to close next month.
Closing its doors after Thursday.
It will be closing down after today.
Closing its doors.
And abruptly closed.
It's hard to believe.
That, more than anything, is a sign of the times.
Yeah.
Hello.
Welcome to the Black Void.
Welcome to the Black Void. We are here today to discuss an interesting topic that's been in the news lately, inspired mainly by the last 2 movies, Furiosa and Fall Guy. The summer movie season has officially kicked off.
Don't forget Garfield.
And Garfield.
There's a head-to-head fight on which would flop the hardest this last weekend.
Okay, now have you ever been with a plate? Don't need a spatula.
No, please, no. Ow, it's so hot. Ow, it's really hurting. Ow, ow,
ow. You deserve to be sick.
As of the recording of this video, it's the week after Furiosa and Garfield came out. Both did terribly. And so now I've noticed there's starting to become more conversation and articles and YouTube videos and stuff about the death of movie theaters. And I've noticed that's becoming like a trending topic now. There's a lot of discussion about it. And I'm just thinking like, bitch, we've been talking about that shit for years.
I apologize in advance. The eating you're about to see will not be pretty.
We're ahead of our time.
It's true.
Pre-pandemic, we were talking about how much theaters suck.
Well, we have our own reasons for pre-pandemic for not liking movie theaters, and that's just we don't like people. Mm-hmm. I do like movie theaters, and I have always loved going to the movies, as I'm sure you have. It is a different experience than watching a movie at home. Watching a movie at home has its own positives and negatives, but somehow just getting into the car, going to the movie theater, the smells, getting some popcorn, sitting down, and then when you're done, you leave. It's a whole different experience, and then of course seeing a movie that's meant to be like a crowd pleaser kind of movie.
Yeah. Like a Furiosa or
the Avengers Endgame, or movies like that where it's like everyone's into it and it's kind of a shared experience.
It feels like a big cultural event. That kind of thing still happens once in a while.
Yes, and that's a lot of the interesting little notes that came up in my research. Is misinterpretation of certain things and perceptions are wrong. I mean, I've got a lot of information to go through, and I don't know how much time you have.
I got all the time in the world, because I'm not going to the movie theater, so I got nothing but time.
Yeah, in fact, a recent scientific study found movie theater seats have 14 times as many germs as the average toilet seat.
Oh, fantastic.
Well, speaking of misconceptions, that's one thing in relation to Furiosa I saw a little bit of. You don't see this as much anymore. It's starting to die down. but that idea of like, oh, this movie flopped because they gender swapped Max. It's like, well, it's a different character. Movies with female leads always flop, which isn't true. It's just like one of those like talking points.
It's clickbait. I've seen those cropping up now.
Yeah.
And I have not seen Furiosa. I don't know if it was good or bad. I trust you and Rich. For those wondering, I was sick. I had the flu. And then I said, you know, those movies aren't really like, I don't love them. I don't hate them. I thought Fury Road was really good. I'll have much to say anyway. I know Rich has it's just a passionate love for Fury Road, which is so weird that Rich loves something. So it's like he won't just have him on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the same kind of like points were made about that too. What'd they call it? Mad Maxi Pad, all sorts of stupid names.
Because Furiosa is basically the main character of it. Yeah.
Yes. Now, was Tom Hardy Mad Max?
In Fury Road? Yes.
Yeah. Was he like Mel Gibson's Mad Max?
Yeah.
Like a younger version? Was it a prequel?
It doesn't matter. There's no continuity to those movies. The timeline doesn't matter. It's just another movie about Mad Max.
I would have bogged down that discussion with endless questions. All I remember was he had a iron mask over his mouth. So we're getting too much into Mad Max. I want to talk about the potential death of movie theaters, where it's going, where it is, and how to save it.
Oh, okay.
I'd like to start off my discussion by getting out my notes.
Okay. Well, I was going to say, do you want to go into not just the death of movie theaters, but the death of interest in movies itself?
I don't think there is a death of interest in movies.
Okay.
There is in certain ways, but I mean I have like topic headers and points and stuff like that. So may I just guide you through this discussion, because I have it kind of all laid out in a style of a certain cranky old man, whose videos I will no longer make. One, because of jokes, and two, because I have to fill the screen with images and pictures that will constantly be copywritten flagged. And it would just be a nightmare. So let's start it off with a little number one, things that are outdated yet somehow still exist. And I don't think I need to explain these. Maybe they're self-explanatory. Number one, beauty pageants. Number two, graveyards. Number three, circuses. And number four, movie theaters.
Okay, I'm going to say graveyards hold a little more sort of personal resonance for people than beauty pageants or circuses.
Beauty pageants is self-explanatory. They still exist.
They still exist, but they feel so antiquated.
Yes, graveyards. Can I explain graveyards?
I'm fine with bulldozing all the graveyards. Throw all those corpses in a pit somewhere. I'm fine with that.
Well, okay, graveyards, excluding other cultures that might send their dead down the river or set them on fire, whatever. I guess Western culture does graveyards, right? And graveyards, when a person would die, this is probably knowledge to most people, their body rots and stinks.
Yes.
So you bury it in the ground. And when you bury someone that you love 6 feet into the ground, you want to mark where they're at so that you know. So you don't accidentally dig them up, number one. Number two is you want to go to mourn the person that you loved and visit them in their eternal resting place. And prior to photographs and video and things like that, in the ancient times, you had absolutely no way to remember your loved one. Maybe a drawing? An article of clothing? I don't know.
Cave painting?
Well, a little after cavemen. I don't think cavemen just fed their dead to the wolves. I really don't know, Jay. But in modern times, I think cremations are on the rise more.
Yeah.
And or green burials, or what shooting you into space. like Scotty.
I mean, that sounds great. Shoot people out of a cannon until they burn up in the atmosphere, and then they're the universe's problem.
Luke Perry got turned into mushrooms. I mean, there's all sorts of options, right? Sure. And you go to, like, who goes to a graveyard? So that's that. Circuses, of course, evolved in the 1800s when we were starting to learn about the world and, oh my gosh, these exotic animals.
Yeah. Now you know how poorly they're taken care of.
How does one see an exotic animal?
Yeah.
Oh, well, they put them on a parade and make them do tricks and look at that. And then that evolved into zoos. And then I think even zoos, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And then, which I think the better progression past zoos is like animal sanctuary, where it's like, they
can roam free.
They roam free, and you can maybe like look at them through binoculars and leave them the fuck alone.
Yeah. Well, movie theaters is a pretty recent one then. We're talking about like in the era of the rise of like streaming and larger, increasingly larger and larger televisions.
Sure, but movie theaters, to me, movie theaters represent like a culture or society that's like unified.
Yes.
Where, a movie theater, you'd look in the newspaper or on TV and see the time the movie would start, which is just already antiquated. The movie starts at this time.
Yeah.
The only way to see it is to go to this building with everybody else and watch it. And
if you missed it in the theater, that was it.
Yeah. Release windows is chapter 4, so hold your horses there.
Okay.
Movie theaters are a representation of a unified culture when we are rapidly becoming a very fragmented culture. TV ads and trailers used to be where we'd hear about new movies. There was no internet and much less competition for entertainment than there is today. These are the obvious things.
This is something you talked about. I don't remember which Plinkett review it was, but a Plinkett review from like 12, 14 years ago, where you're talking about the cultural blurring effect.
The blurring effect, yeah.
And that was over a decade ago. We were talking about that.
Well, that falls in line with the concept of the household name, like where, and that also is attributed to the unified culture, unified pop culture, where it's like, have you seen Jurassic Park?
Yeah.
Everyone in the world knew what Jurassic Park was. Everyone in the world knew what E.T. was, The Matrix. I mean, you go Back to the Future, Indiana Jones, all those big pop culture event movies. Everyone kind of knew what they were, regardless of where you lived or how old you were, or, because you all had kind of like that shared experience or exposure. The only thing today that would be equivalent to that would be like sports. That's kind of like the last thing.
You still have major studios. You still have the few major studios that are putting out their big movies, but those are increasingly more and more frequently flopping. People have turned to you can watch movies on Netflix or whatever, original movies made for Netflix.
That's in chapter 3. Okay, hold your horses.
A scary movie, not on the screen, but actually in the theater. Rats running through a movie theater at a mall in New Jersey.
Number 2. Have movies changed?
Yes. Movies have changed, and people's interest in movies has changed.
How has movies changed it?
Well, the budgets keep going up, for one. That's a big thing.
Okay.
It's an unsustainable structure right now. For a while there, for a good, 10, 12 years there, the run of Marvel, the budgets kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger, to the point where in order for a movie to be considered a success, it had to break $1 billion at the box office. And that's just unrealistic. The new Mission Impossible movie, they're in the middle of making it. They had to postpone production because there was like an issue with, they're trying to film on a submarine or something crazy. So they had to postpone because there was technical issues with the submarine. And now the budget for the new Mission Impossible movie is ballooned to over $400 million, reportedly, supposedly. So yeah, that era of just pumping more and more and more money into these movies is unsustainable. So I think that's changed, and also I think people's perception of movies has changed in that younger people, and this isn't even a criticism, I don't want this to be like oh, those young kids, but I think younger people just aren't as interested in movies and the movie-going experience. They get their entertainment elsewhere.
People aren't going to the theaters anymore because everything is either a remake, a reboot, or a comic book movie. Wrong!
Well, it's wrong in that that's a new thing. The idea of everything, like, I mean, you go back to the 80s, every movie is like an Indiana Jones sequel, another Batman movie.
Let me stop you there.
Oh.
Because my research proves otherwise.
Yeah, box office numbers here.
Let me tell you this. Here's my, let me just get my charts out of the way. And of course I'll have graphics for the audience at home. This is via Box Office Mojo, IMDb Pro. I was gonna do this by decades, and then I realized I didn't have to. I compiled a list of the top 200 highest grossing movies of all time, adjusted for inflation.
Okay.
And there's other like factors in the data that aren't really included. Like, for example, when Gone with the Wind came out, there were no megaplexes. There weren't 25 movies coming out every month.
Everybody saw Gone with the Wind because it was the only movie.
Right. It was the only movie. There might have been two.
Sure. What was the other one? No one remembers.
Yeah, there might have been. This is Laurel and Hardy fight the Wolfman. And also, maybe they saw the movie 6 times because it was great. And
well, it's like Titanic, right? Everyone saw that. Was in theaters for like 9 months.
Yes,
because everyone kept seeing it again and again.
Out of the 200 most grossing films of all time, 84 were in the last 24 years.
Okay.
Nearly half.
That's pretty good.
Existed in the last 24 years. From 2000 to today, 84 out of 200.
It's more than I would have expected. But maybe this is in your information. How many of those are original films? As in not sequels or remakes or...
Why, I happen to have that graph for you.
Oh, that's wonderful news.
The orange represents original movie ideas. The blue represents sequels, remakes, reboots, Star Wars, Marvel,
Existing IPs.
Existing IPs. Then when you take a look at the other 112, the orange represents original movie ideas.
Okay.
These are your Batmans, and things like that.
Well, I guess what would be like the original Star Wars? Because that was before it was a franchise.
I included Star Wars as an original idea.
Okay.
Did not include Empire, and Return of the Jedi and stuff like that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then like
at that point,
there are things that are gray areas, like Jurassic Park. Of course, wasn't a famous IP. It was based on a novel, the Michael Crichton book, and I would say, I don't know what 5% of the people read the book. You know, but then of course Jurassic Park 2, The Lost World, it would be considered an IP at that point.
Yeah.
Gray areas. I use my best judgment.
Okay.
Let's just put it that way. And the bulk of highest grossing movies are remakes, sequels. So people say, well, Hollywood needs to stop making reboots and remakes and sequels and things based on existing IP, blah, 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 blah. But the thing is, they don't. Like the bean counters know that's where the money's at, and that's.
I think the perception of sequels and remakes is different now than it was in like the 70s, 80s, 90s.
Yeah.
Where now people are more. They hear like, oh, we're getting Inside Out 2. Where people are a little more tired of it than they probably were in the 80s when it still felt. Because that was kind of the rise of sequels. Was sort of the 80s, starting with like Star Wars in the late 70s and then going into the sequels to that. So that was like, it still kind of felt new and exciting. Like, oh, I liked Batman 1989. Now there's another one. But now you're like, oh, they're making another Batman.
But the in between the years of 1939 to 1999, there were a lot of sequels, but there was a lot of big risks being taken too on new ideas that paid off.
Yeah.
Because that's where you went to watch a movie, was the theaters, and that's why they paid off.
Yes.
They won't pay off today because you could watch it at home. It's a different dynamic. So now they almost have to completely rely on remakes, sequels, recognizable IPs. For example, coming out this summer season, Inside Out 2.
Oh, we just had a couple weeks ago, we had the Planet of the Apes movie that flopped as well. That already came out. No one even knew it came out.
Oh, I didn't know.
See? That's what I mean. It was like a huge flop.
A Quiet Place Day 1, Despicable Me 4.
Of course.
Bad Boys Ride or Die. I think the summer movie season is going to be based on the success of probably Despicable Me 4 and Inside Out 2.
I'd say Deadpool will probably do pretty
Deadpool, sorry. Yeah, Deadpool 2, because those are going to bring in the money, and it's because...
In theory, they're supposed to.
Yeah, I mean, Garfield, I think people are just like, I think little kids are too young for Garfield. They know Inside Out and Despicable Me. I think those will be more financially successful.
Yeah, little kids don't even know Garfield.
This Super Mario Brothers movie was very successful because they have a slew of modern Super Mario games that appeal to kids.
That's something that's not just based on nostalgia. It's consistently been popular for decades. Yeah.
Another factor in here is the blip of the writer's strike.
That's true, yeah.
Which may have slowed down.
Pandemic, writer's strike, actor's strike, like all that kind of muddied the waters of releases.
The thing is, though, video, also not to muddy the conversation, but video games are long, complicated things that people play, and those work better as prestige television, such as Fallout and...
The Last of Us.
The Last of Us, yes.
Yeah, well, those are more, I'm talking about more like Mario
silly
type
games?
kitty games.
I mean, there was
Legend
a
of
Sonic
Zelda.
sequel.
Oh yeah, those do pretty well, those Sonic movies.
Yeah,
The third one of those is coming out this summer.
No, a lot of those are just what can we do with the kids this weekend? That's really what those are.
It was a black site, sir.
And change your clothes before you sit onto your furniture so you're not just transferring your bacteria to your furniture from the theater seat.
Number 3, the world is changing. The 3 C's: competition, cost, and COVID. So I was browsing around while in the midst of writing this, and I noticed a tweet from a guy named Elias Tofexis. You probably don't know who that is. He's like a voice actor.
He sounds Amish.
And he explained everything in a nice, simple tweet.
Okay.
And it was about the death of movie theaters. And I'm going to paraphrase here a little. He says, COVID really made people comfortable with watching new movies at home. And I thought that was an interesting way of saying that, because a lot of people say movie theaters are dying because people don't want to go back because of COVID. They're scared of collective environments.
Oh yeah, I think we're past that at this point.
We are definitely past that at this point.
It's because of something that we championed early in the pandemic, was just release everything to streaming. But now the genie's out of the bottle. You're not going to get people back in theaters because, it'll be on streaming in 2 weeks.
That's the kind of excuse people make for the theater struggling now, is because COVID did so much damage. And yes, COVID did damage to movie theaters when it was happening. But now that it's over, I don't think, I haven't thought about COVID in so long.
Yeah.
And then you see footage of like other things going on, like concerts, conventions. And it's a
more social environments that people want to get back to.
I see crowds all over, and I have that little thought pops into my head, and I remember COVID. And you see footage of like concerts, you know, happening, summer concerts, and the people are just jam-packed in. You're like, oh. And so some people say, well, no one's going back to the theaters because of, you know, what happened during COVID, and they're traumatized.
Well, that's the fourth C. That's cope. They're coping. That's a lie. It's people want to get back to social events that they enjoy that you can't get at home. A concert.
Yes. And that's the difference between a concert and a movie, because some people will stupidly say, well, people go to concerts. Why aren't they going to movies? Because you go to a concert to see a band on the stage, the Foo Fighters or whatever, and that's them.
You're not going to get that same experience at home.
Yeah. I mean, you could watch a video of them, but it's not the same thing. And like, that's where they are. That's the one place in the whole world that they're playing right now.
Yeah.
And that's special, and that's a thing, you know. And it's like
I can pull out my phone and watch The Fall Guy right now.
Movies can be watched anywhere at any time. You don't have to go to a theater, and that wasn't the case in the past.
Yes.
And then he says younger people, like his kids, don't want to sit through movies because of YouTube and TikTok. Things were different when he was a kid, and of course it's too expensive. Cost is the other one, to take the family out to the movies, because everyone wants concessions. Concessions, of course, how movies really make their money. So much like going to a baseball game or even a concert, you buy concessions, beer, a hot dog costs $17, you know, it's like that's, but at a movie, concessions should be cheaper.
That might be a way to bring people back.
If they want to survive. So I thought, but the most important part of that tweet was that COVID's made people more comfortable with staying home.
Yeah.
But that doesn't also include the many other benefits of watching a movie at home.
Yeah. Well, that's, I think, yeah, the tweet mentioned costs. You have to, you know, pay to see a movie in a theater. You pay for concessions and stuff. If you rent it at home, even if it's like a new release rental where Amazon charges like $20, you don't have to pay $20 for everyone on your couch.
Right.
It's a one-time fee. Streaming and digital platforms have completely like devalued a movie, and the idea that a movie is something like special that you have to go to the movie theater and watch with a group of people in this magical environment. Now that's completely eradicated. It's been blown to smithereens.
It has it hasn't, because there are anomalies.
Well, there's always going to be an anomaly. I mean, everyone brings up Oppenheimer.
Yes, I'm trying to segue into that, because with any scientific-ish research that is done, there are always weird anomalies to.
I do wonder, because that was the big thing with Oppenheimer and Barbie, was the whole Barbenheimer thing, and that became a big kind of cultural meme, basically. And I wonder if those two movies didn't get released right next to each other. Like, would Oppenheimer have done as well as it did just on its own, and would Barbie have done as well as it did just on its own, or was it that sort of combination that got the people talking about both movies? Because that's a thing too, is awareness.
Part of the explosive box office numbers, the Barbenheimer challenge, seeing both Barbie and the new movie Oppenheimer in the same day.
Also, we're talking about cultural connection, cultural events where everyone goes. Everyone, like Barbie was more so than Oppenheimer. Oppenheimer was like a buzzworthy Christopher Nolan film. It's good. It's good. It's going to be great. It's
I
going to
see
be.
it in IMAX.
I got to see it in IMAX. Got to see it on the big screen. It's important, and that sort of like, and the knowledge that a movie of that magnitude is not going to be on streaming a week later, like The Fall Guy, is probably in everyone's minds. It's going to be a while before I can see it again, and that was the method that used to work before. The release window method.
Oh, sure.
And we'll talk about that next, but I wanted to also bring up the Taylor Swift Eras Tour film.
Waving phone lights, dancing in aisles, even belting out lyrics at the top of your lungs.
It's a concert film, but it was less about seeing it and more about all these like teenage girls getting in a theater and singing together.
Yeah.
And being part of something like the Barbie movie. And those are really the only like last best hope for movie theaters.
I'm gonna go to this movie at least
13 times.
is if somebody releases a super high quality product.
Well, they all have something unique about them. Like, I know obviously Barbie is based on a long existing IP.
Yeah, it was a big deal that there was a Barbie.
It's a Barbie movie, and it's coming from a perspective that isn't like an Angry Birds movie. Like, here's a thing that's popular with kids, so we're making a cheapo kiddie movie.
Or the Chippendales movie.
Oh, sure, yeah. Just something like cheap to distribute to kids. They did something unique with it.
The next best thing would be is if they made a Care Bears movie directed by like Seth MacFarlane.
Sure.
Where the Care Bears get bumped into the real world.
Who's that coming from somewhere up in the sky?
And they shoot their power beams at like homeless drug addicts, and it just does nothing.
Yeah.
It's like the Muppets Take Manhattan, you know? they just get a fucking dose of reality. Wouldn't that be awesome?
Proving that at the box office, life in plastic is fantastic.
So on the subject of cost, my data about the box office returns is based only on inflation. So the general price of tickets, I haven't really paid attention, might have gone up quite a bit. I don't know. Like, do they still have matinee prices? I'm a little out of touch on these subjects.
I think it depends on the theater chain.
I just buy the tickets and I don't look at the price.
When you go to the theater twice in a year, because that's all we do anymore.
Yeah.
I did see, I mean, it depends. I think it depends on the theater and it depends on the region. Because I saw someone complaining about the price of like one ticket for one movie somewhere was like over $20. It's like, well, that's absurd. In this day and age, especially, that's absurd.
I'm sure like the New York market is different than like the Boise, Idaho market.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
I'm sure it's like gas prices. I'm sure there's an average. 2 people, 4.
Again, if you want to, you can watch it at home and pay one price to rent it.
Right.
And that's it.
So cost, and then there's gimmicks.
Where are you going? Sorry, full of hope.
Obviously, the cost was more with the 3D crap. That's
basically dead.
That's
now,
basically dead. And then the idea, I think, instead of focusing on, and this goes into our chapter of how to fix the movie theaters. I think instead of focusing on one super high quality products that are very exclusive to theaters, because I see that only in theaters and I roll my eyes.
Oh, sure.
Because I say, oh, okay, sure. I'm just going to do other things until it's on streaming, dummy. Yeah. But in the past, that used to mean something.
Yeah.
Number 4, release windows. There are 3 steps in old release windows, and some of our audience might not remember this. Step 1, first run theaters. What would happen, Jay?
Oh, everyone goes and sees it because it's the only way you can see it.
1989.
And
what happened?
It's a huge hit and it's a talking point for everybody. Have you seen Batman? Have you seen Batman?
And if
Have you seen the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie?
If it's a huge hit, it stays in the first run theaters as long as humanly possible, right?
Until it stops making so much money. Yeah.
Titanic was in first run theaters for like 13 months.
Yeah.
It was like obnoxiously long. I came out in December, and I think it left the theaters in like January of the following year.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, that is an anomaly.
That's an anomaly,
even for the time, but still.
But a big movie, like, you can expect it in first run theaters for 4 or 5 weeks, 6 weeks, and then it disappears. It vanishes for 3 months before second run.
Oh, sure.
Theaters,
The dollar
AKA
theaters,
the dollar theaters.
which I don't even know if those exist anywhere anymore.
There's probably 2 left.
Yeah.
And that was when it's like, ooh, 6 months ago, Batman came out. Now I can see it in the dollar theater. Then it would have its little run in the dollar theater, and then 3, 4, 5 months till it hits video store.
6 months, maybe, yeah.
The idea that you would have to wait, in some cases, almost a year to see that movie. I vividly remember when Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade finally came out on home video. I went to my local video store, and I would go in, I'd ride my bike up there, and I would go in and I would see, they would have the actual like empty cardboard box, and behind it would be the clamshell.
Oh, sure.
Then you knew it was there.
Yeah.
And all the cardboard boxes were just there.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd be like looking through them all, trying to see if there was one. Nope, come back the next day. Nope, come back the next day. Until finally I found one. Yes! Yeah. And that was my only way of getting it.
So even and when it did get a home video release, it still felt kind of like exclusive and special.
Yes.
That's again, like I'm saying, the devaluing of movies now. They don't mean anything anymore.
Let's talk about competition. You were saying movies aren't going to exist anymore. I don't agree with that.
No, I mean movies are always going to exist. I think the era of them being such a huge focus and like cultural touchstone is going away. Movie theaters will always exist to some extent, but I think the era of, I think we've said like Endgame, Avengers Endgame was like the last blockbuster. And there have been movies that have made money since then, but that feels like...
Appropriately titled.
That feels like the last of that era of the movie theater going experience.
Right before COVID.
And that's the crazy thing, that it happened right before COVID. It's weird timing that it all worked out that way.
So the obvious thing with competition, streaming TV is better. Now it's faster, more high quality. TVs are bigger, and shows themselves are higher quality.
Yeah.
Like there was a time when you'd be like, oh, it's going to be a TV show. Mm-hmm. And then the effects, the visual effects have completely caught up, matched and or surpassed.
Well, not even effects, but also just like writing and the way these shows are structured and the way they can take their time and the way a movie can.
Yeah, prestige television is like a movie. Quality can be the same or better. It could be longer and digested at will.
Yes.
Kind of much like a book.
Mm-hmm.
And there are certain things, we've discussed this on our shows before, there are certain things that deserve 8-hour-long episode, whether in its adaptation of a book. Our big example was It.
Oh, yeah.
It should have been...
that would have benefited from, 6-8-part miniseries kind of thing.
And me personally, I've watched so much more TV than I have movies, but I still watch movies. Because sometimes you're just in the mood for a 90-minute story that ends, and you're just happy with it, or just something that's completely bonkers. Yeah. And they're less likely to take a chance on a 10-hour-long prestige television series about just some fucking crazy idea that some whack job came up with.
Right.
But you're going to get that in some weird low-budget movie.
Mm-hmm.
If you missed some of the top blockbusters this summer, like Barbie and Oppenheimer,
I can't wait. If you're trying to stay cool in this heat, Sunday might be the perfect chance to catch a movie. Sunday is National Cinema Day, and most theaters across the country are offering tickets for just $4.
Special deal coming up. If you've been debating whether to go see a movie in a theater, this weekend might be the time to do it. This Saturday, September 3rd, movie tickets will be just $3 as part of the newly launched National Cinema Day by the Cinema Foundation.
That was amazing.
Can we do that again?
Number 5, how and why to save the movie theater. So Jay, final topic, is it necessary to save the movie theaters, and or how would you do it? I have some ideas.
Oof. I like I was saying before, movie theaters are going to stick around. I think the era of like the big multiplex theaters with the big tentpole movies, I think over time that will gradually go away. And it'll almost be, I mean, you can still buy vinyl, like that's still a thing. I think it might eventually become something closer to that, where there's like people that really love movies as an art form can still see movies in a theater. You might get 1 or 2 or 3 big movies a year. I'm talking long term here. Because Hollywood right now, it seems like it's in that just keep spending money until it's like a gambler, like until we get another hit, until we get another Barbie.
Drunken gambler.
A drunken gambler. And I think that's going away, and movies will become more niche. Not just like because, I'm not even really talking about the quality of the movies, but audiences, younger audiences do not care that much about movies.
Wait, are those full movies or trailers, you think? So if this is 1 minute, imagine how big the, like...
Like, what right? And then it would do something?
But look how that dish is huge. Just imagine 24 of these little frames make 1 second of a movie in most cases. So that's like from here to like here, probably.
They watch TikTok, they watch YouTube, they find their entertainment elsewhere. They play video games. So the kind of cultural importance of movies has diminished, partially by younger people's interests and tastes, and also partially by what we were saying about movies being devalued. So that I think that era is going to go away, of the big movies.
I have 4 options. One option you might find interesting. My first option is bank on the fact that once every couple of years, a monster hit might come along to sustain you. A Barbie, a Top Gun Maverick, etc. A movie that comes out that is too big to put right on streaming or to co-release. We didn't really talk about co-releasing, because that's an option too, release in the theaters and release on streaming. Although it seems
that was
like
something they were doing during COVID, and that's kind of gone away.
And it didn't really work out.
Well, I mean, during COVID it did, because no one was going to the theaters, so it was a way to get the movie in front of people and get people talking about it.
And to make money from it.
And to make some money from it. But that's kind of gone away now, but it doesn't matter because the release window is so short now between theaters and streaming.
Option 2, more gimmicks. Tell me about gimmicks. We got...
You talk about like William Castle running a skeleton across the theater?
Sure. Well, or a pipe organ player, or maybe like a pre-screening burlesque show, back rubs, scented air.
Yeah, okay.
Free concessions?
I mean, they'll never do that, but...
Because the popcorn doesn't cost much to make.
Right.
Or free popcorn and soda, how about that?
Okay.
Certain size. I know they have deals like that, like Tuesdays, it's free small popcorn.
Oh, sure.
But just fuck it.
Just
Go
just in general.
Large popcorn, large soda for every paying customer, free. Free refills. Soda and popcorn basically cost nothing to the theater companies.
Yeah.
Candy, no.
But that's where they make their money. So
that's why I'm saying you raise the split with the theaters or with the distributors. I worked in a movie theater, and I was working there at the time when they switched over from, you remember movie theaters would have 10,000 seats, and they'd be those like somewhat uncomfortable little seats with the metal back, and a row would be like 70 seats. And then they ripped them all out and put in the big like Fatso Tootsie Roll chairs, right? With the reclining things. I hate them.
Yeah.
I hate them. They're more uncomfortable than the old seats. And then a row could hold 10 seats. And the seat count for a theater went from like 250 down to like 80.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, this is going to be a problem. And now they can't even fill those seats. Like, we've got the most comfortable seats in town. Like, that's a gimmick.
Yeah.
Now, option 3, you can discuss with me, is get back to more strict release schedules. And see, right now it's kind of like the Wild West with distributors, streaming services, movie theaters, where it's like, if your movie's in the theaters, like The Fall Guy, we're not going to put it on streaming for a very long time, as a way to kind of like...
You'd have to really like prop that up in your advertising then, so people really
will not be
understand
available
it.
on streaming until October of 2025.
Yeah, because now people are so accustomed to, well, I'm not going to bother to take the whole family to go see it. We'll watch it when it comes to Amazon or whatever.
Yeah, and I'm the same way.
Yeah.
And sometimes I don't know when it's coming, but I'm
you didn't even know that Planet of the Apes movie came out.
Exactly. I'm a patient adult, though, and I'm just like, well, I'll file that in the back of my brain. I'm not like rushing out to see something. Certain things, I'm like, oh, I want to see that right away.
Furiosa is like the only movie this entire year was like, yeah, I want to see that when it comes out. Like, I would like to see that right away.
Yeah.
I think that's the only movie. Maybe Long Legs.
To
my option 4, I call it Unite the Chains. Like Unite the Clans. Unite the Chains. Now, not literally unite them, not literally merge them all into one.
You don't want a giant monopoly for
yes,
movie theaters?
We have monopoly laws.
Yeah.
But if, AMC,
Cinemark?
I think they went out of bank in business. I think Marcus Theaters is a big Midwestern-y. Here's a bunch of movie chains because we can't think of any. Right. Now, if they all got together and said, there's a lot of really great movies that are being released and they're flying under the radar. We could make money off these movies. For example, Dinner in America. Let's take Dinner in America and Long Legs.
Okay.
Movies like that. Do they appeal to the masses that want to see Barbie or Taylor Swift? No. But every year, as the film festival circuit happens, Sundance, Cannes, etc., theater chains take note. And the theater chains, as an alliance, all say, wow, that Dinner in America movie is getting a lot of buzz. Let's sign it for a 2-week theatrical distribution amongst all of our movie theaters. Now imagine, if you will, because say Dinner America played at 5 theaters at random places across the country. No one ever heard of it.
I think is what happened.
What if movies like that filled the many, many screens of multiplexes all over the country?
I think general audiences just wouldn't care about those movies. Like Snack Shack came out earlier this year, speaking of Dinner in America, and that was actually playing at the big theaters, but nobody saw it. So I think it's a weird niche movies like that are still never going to draw a crowd.
So you have less, but they would. We also said Dinner in America, if that came out in 1997 and was put in all the theaters, it would have done well.
Yeah, I think it would have then. But I think the perception of movies and people's interest in movies is much more different now.
So you're taking the misanthropic, nihilistic approach that the humans, the audience, has grown dumber.
I mean, I guess that's one way to put it. I think not dumber, just their interests have changed.
Following fat people.
Would you stop that? All right, let's see if we can get the right characters. SpongeBob.
Alone. Alright! Enough! Stop it! Stop.
We're trying to see what is the correct pattern.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not just talking indie. I'm talking there's like horror.
Yeah. Well, horror's always does well.
Yeah.
Especially if you follow. This is an interesting thing too. I saw Jason Blum, who that's their whole model is they keep the budgets low so they can just make a shitload of money opening weekend, and then no one will ever talk about Imaginary ever again. But he tweeted out the other day, and he's a film producer. His job is to try and get people to go to the theater to see movies. And he was tweeting about the horrible experience he had taking his kids to the theater. I just thought that was interesting. So it's like even the people who should be doing their best to try and prop up the theater-going experience, they can't help themselves from complaining about the current state of theaters.
Well, yeah, I mean, the current state is not good. People are, I don't know, seem less respectful in public and more disgusting.
We've talked about that so many times.
Yeah, putting that aside, though, you seem to be taking the position that I'm taking more of a hopeful, positive view, which is reverse.
Very unusual, yeah.
Because and the thing is too, is like, if this were the past and Dinner in America, that's our example, was out in all the theaters, it would have to have a word of mouth. It would have, because it's not like a big, tentpole movie. It would, and back then the advertising was different. Everyone watched TV.
Just one caplet works from morning to midnight, during meals and in between.
I don't feel hungry all day, and the weight comes off.
You can lose weight, feel great with today's caffeine-free Dexatrim caplets.
And that's it.
That's something we didn't really talk about. Is you used to see
TV ads.
On like a sitcom, and you'd cut to the commercials, and there would be an ad for a movie coming out. Nobody sees commercials anymore, so that's an entire like huge swath of marketing that just is evaporated.
Willow, rated PG, starts Friday. Check newspapers for a theater near you.
But the new version of that is social media. And that's the way that everyone across the world, across the US, are connected. So you take all the first run theaters, take a Dinner in America, and they put it on all their screens. They set it for 2 weeks of screenings. Some people start to see it. It's a good example of a movie that you'd recommend. I saw it and I said, Jay, you got to see this. This is right up your alley.
There's things to talk about.
There's things to talk about. It's different. It's refreshing. It's and that would kind of bleed into social media, and then the film might have a successful 2-3 week box office run before streaming. And then like that would be something great that I would like, is the movie theaters filled with all these oddball treasures that we dig up.
Yeah.
Who's digging them up out there? Nobody. They're finding them at film festivals, and then they're signing them to their own streaming platforms. So really, like, that's what's killing the movie theaters, is the movie theaters is solely relying on big tentpole things. Garfield.
Right.
I mean, maybe a recent example would be that Talk to Me movie.
Yeah,
which was
but
made
then again, that's a lower budget horror thing.
Horror,
so,
yeah. I guess horror will always do good, but that was made in Australia, low budget, but then played on screens here. They thought it was good enough to put in movie theaters. I'm just saying, take that concept and that process.
Do it for movies that aren't just horror films.
Yes, and up it tenfold, and really like double down on that. Like we're gonna get all the best movies. Don't put junk. Best movies.
And make it very clear that if you don't see it in the theater, you may not see it for a very long time.
I'm just thinking of a Hail Mary pass to save the movie theaters.
I was going to say, what you're talking about is like trying to reverse engineer human psychology and how they expect to receive their content.
People,
and I don't think that's possible.
People are sheep, and they can be trained. Sheep can't be trained. I'm sorry, bad example. People are an animal in a mass that can be trained. People are goats that can be herded into the right direction.
Okay.
One goat starts running one direction, the others follow.
That's true.
And I think it could potentially work. But I don't know. If you have any comments, please share them. If you have any ideas, and you know, radical change to business models is very risky. But
well, yeah. But I think, I mean, obviously, we haven't really talked about quality of movies. That's kind of its whole other topic, really. But I also think what would benefit is more Oppenheimer-type movies, less. I mean, we're going to have to get less Marvel movies because now they're making less and less money. But movies that feel more unique, I think, would benefit as well.
in a lot of cases, unless it's a really smart filmmaker with a really great script, in a lot of cases, Oppenheimer-type movies are super expensive to make, and unless you have that safety net of making that money back in an expensive box office setting, where people are paying $25 a ticket and filling the theaters, every last seat, to watch your movie, they will stop making Oppenheimers. That's why I'm saying that you can make Oppenheimers and Top Gun Mavericks and, you know, Guardians of the Galaxies and whatever, the new James Gunn DC Superman movie or whatever, when that's going to come out eventually.
The Cinemark and CGV theaters in San Francisco, the United Artists Theater in Berkeley, and now the Albany Twin, The list of movie theaters going out of business, leaving the Bay Area, is growing.
Now, Peter and I have gotten pretty lucky in terms of the 4 projects that are coming out over the next year.
Chagrin Cinemas are showing their final movies this weekend after more than 3 decades.
The nation's second largest movie theater chain announcing it is closing 39 more locations throughout the country, including the Shadowwood 16 cinemas west of Boca Raton.
First, we have Shazam! Fury of the Gods.
Yeah, this is actually the 3rd multiplex location in the city to shutter in just 2 months. One in College Point, Queens will close on May 7, and another in Jamaica, Queens next Tuesday.
That moves directly into The Flash, a fantastic movie that I really love that resets the entire DC universe.
Screens will permanently fade to black at 3 Marcus theaters this month. The Southgate Cinema in Milwaukee closes Tuesday, and there's only 2 weeks left to catch a flick at Showtime and Saukville Cinemas.
Then to move into Blue Beetle, a fantastic film about a kid who's a marvelous part of the DCU, and then into Aquaman 2, which leads directly into our next few projects, which I'm going to tell you about now.
Some unfortunate news to share with movie lovers in Johnston. The AMC Classic Theater now has permanently closed.
Regal Cinemas has not officially commented on the closure, but this is a trend we're seeing across the country.
One of my favorite comic book series from last year was Tom King's run on Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow.
One of Little Rock's longest-standing movie theaters is shutting its doors.
And so we're going to turn that into a big science fiction epic film.
Hall Cinema 7 had been there for 15 years. That location was a movie theater for many years before that. A lot of people who live in the area are pretty upset to see it go.
It is a fantastic story that's out of this world, and I can't wait for people to see it.
In other news we're watching tonight, the end credits could be rolling now soon on the only major movie theater in Madisonville.
Okay, next up is the big one, the true beginning of the DCU. This is called Superman Legacy. This is being written by me. I'm in the middle of it. I'm having a great time doing it. And Superman will be released into theaters July 11th, 2025.
With the theater closing, people in Lunenburg County will now have to travel an hour away to Halifax or New Minas if they want to get the full theater experience.
Storytelling is always king. That's all that matters to us.
And that's not going to go right to streaming.
Yeah.
Because if it's going to go right to streaming, Netflix or Amazon or whoever, HBO probably would be the one because they own DC.
Yeah.
They're going to have to pay for it or subsidize it by having 500 billion new subscribers in order to cover the cost of the movie.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is you got 10 screens, you have Superman, Mission Impossible 9.
A movie that cost $700 million to make.
And then 8 other really high quality movies that have been handpicked from festivals, verified, vetted for their quality.
That you know will be playing at your theater, as opposed to, oh, there's a smaller movie coming out. Maybe it's, I don't know which theater.
I don't know where it's
how
at.
to watch it. Yeah.
I know that smaller movie that was the darling of the Cannes Film Festival is going to end up in all of the theaters nationwide for a short period of time. Not just New York and LA, but all of them.
Yeah.
And I'm really looking forward to that. And let's spread the word, movie theater companies. And while you're there, buy tickets for Superman. I mean, that's it's sort of like safety in numbers.
Yeah.
Band together. That's kind of like my only thought.
Yeah.
The other
as
thing,
opposed to the current state of things where everything is separated because everyone has their own streaming service.
The Wild West method rarely has worked.
Yes. Well, that's been proven over the last couple of years.
Yes, throughout history, the Wild West method has rarely worked. But then there is also my snarky idea of movies becoming so niche that you charge $500 to go see this exclusive Disney, Marvel, DC product.
That's what we're talking about with. We're talking about that with Solo, I think.
A Boba Fett, maybe?
The Boba Fett movie or something?
I think we made the Boba Fett movie. And
Yeah,
we said,
yeah.
The Boba Fett movie will cost $200 million. They have to sell X amount of tickets at $1,000 a piece.
But you have a very small, very dedicated audience.
You have a 10-person theater,
Oh my God, get Zack Snyder back to make another Batman movie, and those Snyder bros, they'll pay $300 for a ticket.
10-person theater, someone serves you champagne and caviar, or I guess in the Zack Snyder case, chicken wings.
It'll be Cheetos and Mountain Dew.
Cheetos and Mountain Dew, yeah. They can have all the Cheetos and Mountain Dew they want, unlimited, for a $500 ticket fee, and they could watch that movie, and it can't be seen anywhere for 7 years. And that model works in business and other products. Yeah. You know, you raise the price of something, you have less of it, you make a profit. You know, they don't make 10 million Ferraris. Mm-hmm. It's a higher quality car. It costs $200,000. There's less of them. People pay more for them. It makes a profit.
Yeah.
So you could do that with entertainment. That's one weird way it could go.
It's a weird, very cynical way to look at the...
But what will probably happen is all the theaters will go out of business and they'll all turn into churches. But I do think movies will soon become a place where you take your kids to shut them up for 2 hours, or a place where tween girls dance.
I'm gonna go to this movie at least 13 times.
What makes cinema? I think what makes cinema to me...
Waving phone lights, dancing in aisles, even belting out lyrics at the top of your lungs.
I think ultimately it's something that for some reason stays with you.
I didn't fucking touch you. I didn't touch you.
That's interesting. At first you may be, you may find that I'm affected by this film. The camera work is amazing. The actors are terrific. Great editing and that sort of thing. In other words, there's more to learn about yourself or about life.
Goodbye, everyone. Enjoy your movie.